Hello, I'm very happy to be here at the Construction 4.0 conference to talk about robotics and automation applications in the construction industry. I'm Jeff Burnstein, president of the Association for Advancing Automation. The first industrial robot was installed 60 years ago in a General Motors plant in the United States. When I got involved 40 years ago, robotics was going to be the next industrial revolution. There were going to be millions of robots in every industry. People were going to be put out of work. There was all sorts of fear. Any of this sound familiar? Because we're hearing a lot of these same things today. Now, the reality is it's only been in the last decade or so that robotics has really taken off globally. This was a very slow revolution. In fact, it was more of an evolution. If you look at what's going on in the world, you see that we had a steady rise in robot applications outside of the Great Recession. So the recession ended in 2010, things took off primarily in China. The biggest player in applying robotics over the past decade has been China. They now lead the world and they are all in on this technology. They have a long way to go. Look at the number of robots per 10,000 workers. You see Singapore and Korea at the top. China still has a long way to go to catch up with them. So we're early in the China story as well. Who's using them? Traditionally, the biggest users have been the auto companies, electronics, but now we're seeing it spread. Metalworking, food and beverage, consumer goods, all sorts of industries are now finding out how robots can help them become more globally competitive. We hit a major watershed moment in the United States at the end of 2020 when for the first time the non-automotive use of robotics topped the automotive use. That was a big step forward because it shows just how quickly robotics is spreading to every industry. Another major industry user, warehousing and logistics. This one has really come on fast. Amazon, Walmart, Target, all of these companies applying robots, mobile robots, and new technology with all sorts of applications for picking and packing and moving things around. Now, how about other industries that we're seeing? Food, retail, indoor farming, disinfection during the pandemic, medical, all kinds of areas where robots are playing a role that they weren't just a decade ago. Now, what about that job story? Well, we believe robots save and create jobs. We think the biggest threat to jobs is when companies are no longer able to compete, because that's when all the jobs are at risk. You know, technology changes have always changed the nature of jobs. In the United States, we used to have 70% of the workforce worked on farms. Today, it's about 3%, and yet we have better, safer, and more food. The reality is, the new jobs that are emerging are better, they're higher paying, and they're safer jobs. For instance, how many of you would have thought there'd be a great high paying job called search engine optimization specialist 30 years ago? Or app developer for iPhone? That's kind of a trick because the iPhone wasn't around 30 years ago. But these are all good jobs. The truth is, if you focus on your fears, we're going to miss out on the opportunities. I mean, just think about driverless cars. People are afraid, well, what if there's an accident, if the car hits somebody? Well, we lose hundreds of thousands of people a year globally in auto accidents. Wouldn't it be great if driverless cars could reduce that by 90% or so, even if there were a few accidents? What we're seeing right now, the skills gap is the biggest impediment to the future use of automation to take advantage of all these great technologies. We don't have a trained workforce in most countries that can handle the jobs of the future, actually the jobs of the present. We have to start early in the education process, we have to train, and we have to retrain the current workforce. You know, during the period of the last 25 years, whenever robot sales went up, unemployment went down. And when robot sales went down, unemployment actually went up. That doesn't sound like a job killer. In fact, in the United States, right before the pandemic, unemployment had fallen from about 10% coming out of the Great Recession to just 3.5%. Again, enabled in part by the advance of automation and robotics. So what about construction? Well, we're seeing all kinds of applications emerging. Why? Because robots can help prevent injuries, they can increase productivity, help save time. I want to share with you a few examples today. The first one is from a company called ABB Robotics. They're one of the leading global players, and they are now making a big bet on robotics in construction. This video will show some of the applications.
ABB currently uses robots to install elevators, automate the production of components for prefabricated homes, or weld together steel reinforcement baskets to strengthen buildings. Sami Attia is the president of Robotics and Discrete Automation at ABB.
We are developing new solutions for the construction industry because there is a perfect storm of high demand and the need for sustainable solutions, and also lack of people who are willing to work in this dangerous and dull work.
While the company's sales in the automotive market are estimated to grow by 3 to 5% in the coming years, Attia told Reuters that the company's pivot to construction looks to be a stronger bet.
This is a high growth area for us. It is, I would say, where automotive was 40 to 50 years ago. So low density of automation. So we expect 20 to 30% growth. It's still on a small base, but the industry will have high demand for robotization and automation to improve their quality and waste in this industry.
ABB surveyed nearly 2,000 construction companies in Europe, China, and the US. And 81% of them said they would start using or increase their use of construction robots in the next 10 years. Selling robot systems can cost from $100,000 up to $1 million. Attia said he expected a recovery in the Americas and Europe after orders fell in the first quarter, and the, quote, fantastic growth in China to continue.
Now I'd like to talk about Boston Dynamics. You may have seen their Spot robot. It gets lots of attention. They are looking at one of the application areas for this robot being in construction. Let's see the video. And finally, I want to show you a video from Dusty Robotics. They are a startup company. They just received over $30 million in venture capital. They're doing some really unique things with the application of robotics in construction.
We're correcting problems that were discovered in layout and giving them the opportunity to fix the problem so there's no comebacks later after it's built. Now we're turning in an observation report and we're resolving those issues before construction starts.
I like the accuracy, but also the additional information that comes with the robot. So right now we're able to chase and solve those smaller issues several months before we normally would be able to see it.
Layout quality is super important. We've actually been able to find a lot of issues with MEPs or any of the plumbing that might be off or any of the shafts that might be off, and we've been able to fix that before we started any framing. So that right there is saving us a huge amount of money. And I feel really, really confident with our layout, knowing that it's coming straight from the CAD files.
One of the biggest value props that we bring to the job site is that we are taking the digital model that gets designed in the pre-construction phase, and we are bringing that out exactly literally into the field. And that accuracy gives all builders the confidence that they're building exactly what they're supposed to be building, and they don't have to come back and do any rework.
I mentioned that I'm the president of the Association for Advancing Automation. We represent over 1,100 global organizations who are involved in robotics, machine vision, motion control, and artificial intelligence. We've got a lot of great things going on: trade shows, conferences, educational articles, white papers. You can download it all at automate.org. We'd love to work with you. This is me. Here's how you can reach me. You can follow me on LinkedIn and Twitter as well. Look forward to working with you. Thank you very much for having me.